Fort Bridger, Wyoming, February 2025. Storage Room C sits at the eastern edge of the facility, tucked between the equipment warehouse and a forgotten motor pool where rusted trucks go to die. The kind of place where paperwork gets lost, where questions don't get asked, where three men can close a door and believe the world stops paying attention. They're wrong, but they won't know that for 11 more seconds. The wind outside carries the smell of diesel and snow. Inside, the air is stale. Fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting shadows that don't quite reach the corners. A clipboard rests on a metal bench. Three pairs of boots, polished to regulation shine, planted firm on concrete. And one woman, 20 years old, standing in the center of it all like she's been here before. She hasn't, but she's been preparing for this moment since the day she couldn't save her father. "Not a girl anymore," one of them whispers, stepping close with the kind of smile that pretends to be friendly. "That's what we're here to teach you." He reaches for her belt. She doesn't move. Not yet. Because 11 seconds from now, three combat veterans will be on the ground, and the only sound in Storage Room C will be the rhythm of her breathing and the echo of a lesson that started 42 years ago in a safe house in Grenada. This is that story. The guard at the gate of Fort Bridger doesn't salute, doesn't even look up from his phone when Kira Dalton steps out of the government shuttle, duffel bag slung across her shoulder like it weighs nothing. February wind cuts through the Wyoming landscape, bitter and sharp, the kind of cold that finds the gaps in your jacket and reminds you that comfort is a choice nature doesn't respect. She's used to it. Hell Week taught her that cold is just data, pain is just information, and discomfort is the price you pay for becoming someone who refuses to break. The guard waves lazily toward a cluster of bleached white trailers in the distance. "Admin buildings that way, you'll figure it out." No inspection, no questions, no acknowledgement that she just spent 8 months becoming one of fewer than 30 women in history to earn the Navy SEAL Trident. She doesn't need his acknowledgement. The facility sprawls before her like a military purgatory. Rows of temporary structures, half-dug fighting pits turned to mud, a haze of cigarette smoke curling from a side shed where three men stand watching her approach. Not hostile, not friendly, just watching. The way you watch a moving object that doesn't quite belong in the frame. Kira keeps her stride controlled, neutral, unbothered. That walk took 3 years to perfect. The kind of movement that doesn't invite conversation, doesn't project fear, doesn't give anyone a reason to remember her face, or wonder what she's thinking, or decide she needs their attention. At BUD/S, they taught her to carry a boat on her head for 12 miles without stopping. They taught her to swim 2 miles in under 75 minutes, while instructors screamed inches from her face. They taught her to function on 4 hours of sleep across 5 days, while the Pacific Ocean tried to drown her every morning at dawn. But nobody taught her how to walk through a room full of men who've already decided she doesn't belong. She learned that on her own. Inside the holding unit, a staff sergeant hands her a locker key without looking up from his monitor. His name tape reads Garrison. His posture reads boredom. "Your rotation's limbo," he says, voice flat as the Wyoming plains. 1 week, maybe 2. Transfer order goes active next quarter. Translation: "You're here, but you don't matter." She nods once, takes the key, tucks it into her hip pocket and moves past 2 rooms of men in various states of undress and indifference. They measure her as she walks. Not with words, not with gestures, just with eyes that communicate everything language would only make messy. They clock her frame, 5'7", athletic build, shoulders that carry tension like coiled steel. No unit patch on her jacket yet. Navy insignia, yes, but no team assignment. No deployment record visible. Just fresh pipeline completion and the kind of youth that makes certain men assume inexperience equals opportunity. From the soft tension behind her shoulders to the lack of drag in her duffel bag. From the way her boots land silent on linoleum to the absence of jewelry, makeup, or any signal that she's interested in being noticed. New, young, alone, and more importantly, leaving soon. Someone says it low as she passes. Short timer. It's not mocking, not even cruel. It's identification. Category. Type. Short timers aren't staffed, aren't protected, aren't dangerous. They're just passing through. And everyone in Fort Bridger knows what that means. She claims her bunk with precision. Top rack, corner position. Boots squared beneath the frame. Duffel nested against the locker. Eyes forward. She doesn't ask who sleeps above her. Doesn't unpack. Just sits, spine upright, palms flat on her knees. Gaze loose and unfocused like she's looking at something 1,000 yards out. She doesn't want to join. She just wants to blend. But that's the problem with silence in rooms like this. It draws attention. By dinner, the entire East Wing knows 3 things about her. 1, Navy. 2, pipeline complete. 3, barely 20. They don't need anything else. At chow, someone cracks a joke. Bet she hasn't even seen a bar fight. Someone else answers without laughing. Bet she hasn't even seen a bar. She doesn't flinch. That seems to bother them. Because in a place where boredom and testosterone run neck and neck every hour of the day, a quiet woman in uniform is never just background noise. She's a trigger waiting to be pulled. They just haven't decided how yet. 8 months earlier, Kira Dalton is drowning. Not metaphorically, actually drowning. Hell Week, Day 3. Surf torture at 0400. The Pacific Ocean doesn't care how badly you want the trident, doesn't care about your reasons, or your father's legacy, or the promise you made standing at his grave in Arlington National Cemetery when you were 14 years old. The Pacific takes what it takes, and this morning, it's taking her under for the 4th time in 6 minutes. Water so cold it feels like knives peeling her skin back layer by layer. Waves rolling over candidates locked arm in arm, sitting in the surf zone while instructors walk the line offering the bell. Offering warmth, offering sleep, offering an end to the pain that's turning muscle into concrete and lungs into fire. Quit now and it stops, an instructor barks somewhere above the roar. Ring the bell and you can sleep. Nobody thinks less of you. But the bell isn't an option. Not when your father's name is etched on a memorial wall with a death date from 2004. Not when the last thing he ever told you, standing in your grandmother's kitchen 3 days before deployment, was, "Be stronger than me, Kira. Don't let the world convince you that soft is the only way to be safe." He died in Fallujah. Roadside IED, killed instantly alongside 2 other Marines in a Humvee that shouldn't have been on that route, but took it anyway because command made a call and soldiers follow orders. She was 10. She's been training for this moment ever since. Her lungs scream. Vision edges black. The ocean swallows her again, and this time she's not sure she's coming back up. Then a hand grips the collar of her vest and yanks her upright, just long enough to suck in one ragged breath before the next wave rolls in. She never sees the face, just the silhouette of someone tall and broad-shouldered, standing in the observation zone. Someone who isn't supposed to interfere. Someone who just violated protocol because the alternative was watching her drown. Later she'll learn his name, Master Chief Garrett Whitmore, 68 years old, call sign, Flint. Legend from the Cold War era, Grenada, Panama. The kind of operator who doesn't need to advertise because the stories do it for him. The kind of man who spent 49 years in the Navy and hasn't softened once. 3 days after Hell Week ends, after she's somehow survived when 62 other candidates haven't, Whitmore pulls her aside. The conversation is short, efficient. No congratulations, no praise, just this. You passed BUD/S. Now I teach you what saves your life when your brothers become your threats. She doesn't understand it then. She does now. They train in back rooms, In off-hour ranges where no one asks questions, where the lights stay dim and the doors stay locked, and the only witnesses are concrete walls and silence. Whitmore doesn't teach her how to shoot better. She already shoots expert marksman. Doesn't teach her to run faster. She already maxes the physical standards. Doesn't teach her tactics or fieldcraft or any of the skills the Navy's already drilled into her skull for 8 months straight. He teaches her how to break a man twice her size using nothing but anatomy and timing. Grenada, he says one night, sitting on the edge of a training mat with hands wrapped and scarred. 1983, I was 27, got cornered in a safe house outside St. George's by 3 Cuban soldiers. No weapon, no backup, just me and 3 men who thought numbers meant victory. He demonstrates a palm strike to an invisible target. Radial nerve cluster, 2 inches below the elbow joint. You hit it right, their hand becomes meat. No strength debate, no size advantage, just nerve disruption and gravity. She watches, memorizes, repeats. The first technique is called the radial nerve strike. Whitmore explains it like an engineer describing a bridge collapse. Specific, technical, ruthless. The radial nerve controls everything from your thumb to your index finger. It's exposed right here. He taps his own forearm. Most people think strength comes from muscle, but muscle obeys nerves. You cut the signal, the muscle becomes dead weight. You don't need to overpower someone. You just need to know where the body stops obeying the brain. She practices it 217 times before he nods approval. 218 before he says she's ready. The second technique is the MCL sweep, medial collateral ligament, the stabilizing structure on the inside of the knee. 40 pounds of lateral force in a space designed to handle 10. Panama, Whitmore says, 89. Noriega's guard in a hallway. He had 80 pounds on me. Didn't matter. Knees aren't built for sideways movement. You hit the MCL right, the leg collapses. Not because you're stronger, because physics doesn't negotiate. She practices it until her shins bruise, until she can execute it blind, until the motion is so ingrained that her body moves before her brain finishes the thought. The third technique is the tracheal redirect, the simplest and most dangerous. You don't need to crush the windpipe, Whitmore explains. You just need to redirect momentum. Neck meets surface at speed. The brain shuts down non-essential systems for 6, 7 seconds while it figures out if the spine is still intact. That's your window. He looks at her with eyes that have seen too much and forgotten nothing. You'll know when you need this, he says. And when you do, don't hesitate. Hesitation gets you killed. Precision keeps you breathing. She doesn't know she'll need it at Fort Bridger. She doesn't know she'll need it against men who wear the same uniform. But Whitmore knows. He always knows. One night, 3 weeks before she ships out to Fort Bridger, she asks him the question that's been building since that first conversation. Why teach me this? He's silent for a long time, long enough that she thinks he won't answer. Then he speaks, and his voice carries the weight of 3 decades. 30 years ago, I didn't teach someone who needed it. Navy nurse, good sailor, better person. 3 men cornered her in a supply room on a carrier in the Persian Gulf. She survived, but she never came back from it. Left the Navy 6 months later. Last I heard, she couldn't be in a room with more than 2 people without panic attacks. He looks at Kira, and for the first time, she sees something behind the legend. Something human and broken and still bleeding after all these years. I swore that day, never again. I don't care what the rules say. I don't care about protocol. If I can teach someone to protect themselves, I will. Every time. No exceptions. He pauses. Your father was one of my students. 2003, pre-deployment training. I taught him the radial strike. He used it twice in Fallujah. Saved 3 Marines in close quarters. Wrote me a letter after. Said he'd never forget it. Kira's throat tightens. 3 weeks later, the IED hit. I got the notification while I was training another class. I kept training because that's what you do. You keep moving. You pass it on. You make sure the next one survives. He stands, walks to the door, stops. You're the next one, Kira. Don't waste it. The door closes behind him with a soft click. She sits alone in the training room, the mat still warm, the air still carrying the scent of his words. She doesn't move for a long time, just sits, thinking about her father, about Whitmore, about the promise she made at Arlington, and about Fort Bridger, where in 3 weeks she'll need every second of those 218 repetitions. It happens without ceremony. No isolation, no closed doors, no raised voices, just the wrong conversation at the wrong time in a place where boredom rots into curiosity and curiosity curdles into entitlement. Late afternoon, downtime, nothing formal, nothing suspicious. A handful of men linger near the benches outside the equipment cage, passing a thermos between them, boots off, shirts loosened. The air has that stagnant, post-training stillness where the body's exhausted, but the mind keeps circling, looking for something to chew on. Kira isn't part of the group. Not really. She stops only because one of them asks, casual and neutral, where she's headed next. Orders say East Coast, she replies, flat, minimal. That should be it. But someone else follows up, voice pitched just low enough to sound harmless. So you got anyone waiting on you back home? She doesn't answer at first. Not because she's caught off guard, but because she's deciding whether the question deserves oxygen. Finally, no. That answer lands differently than they expected. A pause. A look exchanged between two of them. One of them smirks, not unkindly. Career first, huh? She nods once. Discipline matters. Another pause, longer this time. Then the question shifts. Not louder, not sharper, just closer. So what about before all this? You know, relationships. She turns to face them then, calm, no tension in her shoulders, no defensive edge in her posture, just honesty, delivered the way she's learned to deliver everything else, clean and unadorned. I'm a virgin, she says, saving myself. The silence that follows isn't confusion, it's recalculation. Someone lets out a laugh, too fast, too loud. The kind of laugh people use to buy themselves time when something doesn't fit the shape they expected. No way, one says. She doesn't smile, doesn't argue, doesn't soften it. I'm serious. Another laugh, thinner this time. Someone shakes his head like he just heard a joke that didn't land. You're kidding. I don't kid about things like that. That's when it happens. Not the laughter, but the change. The way their eyes stop skimming and start measuring. The way bodies shift, weight redistributing. Like a group that's collectively leaned forward without realizing it. One of them, older and quieter than the rest, tilts his head slightly and says, almost thoughtfully, that's not how this world works. No anger, no threat, just a statement, like gravity, like physics. The others don't challenge him. They don't need to. Because in that moment, something snaps into place between them. An idea so ugly in its simplicity, it doesn't need explanation. She's not experienced, not hardened, hasn't been tested, which in their minds means she's not finished yet. The conversation drifts after that, not back to normal, but sideways. Jokes resume, but they're not aimed at her anymore. They're about concepts, about weakness, about what breaks people. She listens without reacting. She notices how none of them meet her eyes now. Not because they're embarrassed, but because they're already talking past her, deciding things. She excuses herself a minute later. Gear check, she says. No one stops her. No one follows. But as she walks away, she feels it. The weight of attention that isn't pursuit yet. Something worse. Claim. Behind her, one of them mutters, not quite under his breath, someone's going to fix that. Another answers, just as quiet, yeah, life will. They laugh again. This time, she doesn't hear it. But the damage is already done. Because from that moment on, she's not just passing through Fort Bridger anymore. She's a problem they believe needs solving. She doesn't hear the first story they tell about her, doesn't catch the second either. But by the third, it doesn't matter, because they're not stories anymore. They're doctrine. It's not just the men from that bench. It never is. It's the next two who overhear the laughter. The one in the corner who saw her walk away. The guy who'd been bored all month and finally has something to sink his teeth into. Suddenly, it's a group belief, not a joke. She's a virgin, said it herself. Doesn't even know what it's like. Can you imagine making it through BUD/S just to be that? They don't say it with lust. They say it with mission energy. Like this is a failing that slipped past inspection. Like she's walking around unvetted. One guy phrases it perfectly, hands behind his head during chow rotation. You don't send someone into war still wrapped in the packaging. Laughter. Sharper now, less surprised. They're not mocking her anymore. They're preparing. The conversations change around her. At first, they're just quieter. Then they stop including her at all. Inside jokes stack too fast to follow. Statements with no context. Some people don't get it yet. She'll understand soon. It's better when it's not a choice. She doesn't ask questions, doesn't adjust her posture, doesn't give them a single visible cue that anything has shifted. But she notices. Her locker has been moved once. Subtle, just 2 inches, but enough to suggest hands have been there. Her PT schedule starts overlapping more often with theirs. Not every day, just enough to establish pattern. Enough to make her presence predictable. She stops hearing her name, only titles now. Navy girl, short timer, number 20, like she's a training exercise, not a person. And still she says nothing. That's what they don't understand. They think silence means they're getting closer. But her silence is distance. It's measurement, patience, timing. While they're deciding who gets to do the favor, she's already mapping which halls have working exit alarms and which don't. She starts walking the perimeter during downtime. Never the center, always near doors, corners, shadows. She doesn't carry a knife, doesn't need one, because she can hear it now, what they're building together. Not a plan, a philosophy. Virginity isn't just something she has, it's something she's denying them. And in the culture they built for themselves, that's a kind of theft. One night she catches a phrase that doesn't make sense until later. If we don't teach her what it means now, someone else will. And worse, it's better this way, like training. They believed they were helping her. That was the most dangerous part. 3 days before her transfer orders activate, she finds a note under her pillow. Handwritten, block letters, no signature. They're planning something. Get out. She reads it once, folds it, walks to the nearest trash incinerator and drops it in, watches it burn, then walks back to her bunk, sits down, and begins the final mental rehearsal. Radial nerve strike, MCL sweep, tracheal redirect, 218 repetitions. Whitmore's voice in her memory. You'll know when you need this. She knows. And when they come for her, she'll be ready. Not because she's afraid, because she refuses to be the lesson someone else learns from too late. The orders come through without drama. No announcement, no briefing, just a quiet update in the system and a folded paper slid across a desk like it isn't the most important thing in the room. Kira reads it once, then again. Reassignment confirmed. Transit window, 24 hours. New unit, new location, new chapter. She doesn't smile. She doesn't need to. This place has always been temporary. She's known that from the moment she stepped through the gate. What she hasn't realized, what she understands now, is how much that matters to them. Because once the word spreads, the air changes. Not all at once, not obviously, just pressure. Like a weather shift you feel in your ears before the storm actually hits. They know. Someone always knows first. A clerk, a driver, A man with nothing better to do than talk. By afternoon, it's everywhere. Low voices, half glances, conversations that stop when she passes. She's gone tomorrow. Last day. Didn't think she'd make it through here untouched. That word again. Untouched. They don't say it like a hope. They say it like a loophole. Because leaving means she won't be around to complain, won't be there to stir things up, won't have time to become a problem. And more importantly, she won't have backup. They're thinking hard and fast after that. You can feel it in the way they stop pretending. The jokes drop. The sideways comments turn direct, though still coded enough to deny later. Last nights are always weird, one of them says near the lockers, not looking at her. Transitions mess with people, another adds, almost kindly. Better to get things sorted before you move on. She doesn't respond. She packs methodically instead, folds what little she's unpacked, checks her gear twice, keeps her movements efficient, contained, no rush, no hesitation. But she feels it now, the sense of being watched. Not like prey, but like an object someone doesn't want to leave unfinished. The excuse comes late in the day, routine enough to pass without comment. Final clearance walkthrough, inventory reconciliation. One last check before she turns in her badge and keys. The kind of task no one questions because everyone's done it before. The location is clean, legitimate, close enough to foot traffic that nothing feels overtly wrong, but tucked just far enough from the main flow to give privacy. Storage room C. Someone says it won't take long. Someone else adds, just dotting I's and crossing T's. She hesitates for exactly one breath, not because she doesn't see it, but because she sees it too late to pretend she hasn't. Walking away now would mean confrontation, noise, questions she doesn't have proof to answer yet, and worse, it would confirm what they already believe about her, that she's fragile, that she'll freeze. So she nods once and walks in. The door shuts behind her with a sound that's softer than she expected. No slam, no lock click, just a quiet seal. They think that means control. They think time has cornered her. What they don't understand is that she's been training her entire life for moments exactly like this. Moments where everything narrows, where excuses fall away, where intent matters more than words. As the room settles into stillness, she adjusts her stance. Not defensively, not aggressively, just enough to feel the floor beneath her feet, to measure the distance between bodies, to count the exits she's already memorized 3 days ago. They believe this is her last day, that whatever happens next will stay here. They're right about one thing, she will be gone tomorrow. But what happens in this room is going to follow them for a very long time. The room is too quiet, not the kind of quiet that comes from respect, the kind that follows certainty, the kind that comes when men believe the outcome's already decided. She counts 3 of them, not positioned like a team, no formation, no choreography, but stationed, each one close enough to react, far enough not to look obvious. She doesn't stop walking. The man who asked her to come, who used the gear check as an excuse, is leaning casually against the storage cage, clipboard in one hand, the other resting flat on a bench that doesn't belong in this room. She recognizes him now. Damon Barrett, 31, Navy, the one who always speaks last in group conversations, the one who measures everything before committing, the calculating type, the dangerous type. Should only take a second, he says. She nods once, neutral, professional, hands relaxed at her sides. Another man closes the door behind her. Trent Hudson, 29, Marine, scar running through his left eyebrow from some bar fight he wears like a badge. No lock sound, just the soft, mechanical hush of rubber edging sealing the threshold. A third steps slightly left. Reed Sullivan, 28, Army, the follower, the one who laughs at jokes 2 seconds after everyone else. Subtle movement, but enough to cut off one angle of retreat. None of them smile. None of them laugh. They're not performing now. They're activating. The one at the cage gestures to the bench. Sit down. She doesn't move, doesn't speak. The one near the door adds, voice flat, standard protocol. Everyone does it. Still, she doesn't respond. Then the third man, Hudson, the biggest one, takes a slow step forward and drops the line that removes any doubt. Take the uniform off. He says it like a procedure, like it's her turn to comply, like this is training and she simply missed the briefing. She meets his eyes finally, and it's only then that she realizes they're not looking at her like a person anymore. She's a concept now, a failure they've agreed to fix, a box that needs checking before she leaves their world and enters another one, unprepared. The man near the bench adds, quiet now, almost instructional. This is how women are made ready. The words land flat, but with weight. They're not improvising. This is practiced, rehearsed in their heads, if not their actions. And suddenly, the mission they've been building in their minds over days, maybe weeks, is now fully live. The last man closes distance, hands out, not threatening exactly, just moving into guidance position. Like they expect her to freeze. Like compliance is inevitable once the door is shut and the options narrow. Like every woman before her has folded at this exact moment. And she will too. She doesn't freeze, but she doesn't fight yet either. She lets the moment settle, lets them believe the room has become theirs. She listens to the sounds behind the silence, the breath rate of the largest man tightening, the shift of boot rubber against rubberized flooring, the faint creak of the clipboard being set down with the kind of care that means hands are about to be freed for other work. She watches the angles, door, wall, vent, cage. Then she does something that makes all of them pause. She exhales, long, controlled, and sits down right where they told her to. No fear in her eyes, no hesitation in her spine, just obedience. They look at each other. Something flickers between them. Victory, maybe. Confusion, possibly. Adrenaline, definitely. They think they've won. They think she's complying. They think the hard part is over and everything else will follow the script they've written in their heads during all those late-night conversations when they convinced each other this was right. The biggest one moves first. Hudson approaches slowly, posture wide, shoulders rolled forward like he's trying to take up all the space in the room. Not talking now, not posturing, just claiming space. When his hands reach for her arms, she doesn't flinch. She lets him touch her, lets him believe, lets his fingers wrap around her left wrist, lets him apply pressure, lets him think contact means control. Until he tightens his grip. That was his final mistake. Because at that point, she has everything she needs. The bench for leverage, the height differential, the breath in her lungs, the distance between what they thought she was and what she's always been. She lets his hand reach her wrist, lets his weight commit forward, and then nothing else in the room matters. Not the door, not the numbers, not the clipboard, just his body in the exact right place to break it. The first hand reaches for her arm like it has a right. No preamble, no hesitation, just entitlement wrapped in muscle and confidence. He grips her wrist tight and pulls, angling her elbow down toward the bench, like she's equipment being adjusted. His thumb presses just above the joint. Deliberate, practiced. That tells her everything. They discussed this. They rehearsed it in theory, and now they're executing. Before she can respond, the second man steps behind her. Sullivan plants one boot outside her left leg and pushes his thigh forward. Subtle, but effective, blocking her from rising cleanly. Just stay still, he says. Not a threat, a correction, a command given to a trainee who doesn't know the drill yet. From the corner, the third man's voice comes flat and final. This doesn't take long. We're doing you a favor. They're not touching her sexually. Not yet. They're positioning her. Containment first. Breaking her stance. The same way you pin someone in a combatives class before the real pressure starts. One wrist restrained, one leg boxed, one breath away from collapse. Most people would have frozen. Most people would have tried to scream, to struggle, to plead. She does none of those things, because none of those things have ever saved anyone in a room like this. Instead, she adjusts her breathing, lowers her shoulders by a hair, lets the hand tighten, and then she moves, fast. Not wild, not loud, just precise. Her elbow twists against the grip, not away, but into it, rotating the attacker's forearm into a lock against the bench itself. She uses her own weight, leans forward, and drops the base of her palm straight into his radius, the bone just below the wrist, where the radial nerve cluster sits, exposed beneath skin and tendon, where Whitmore taught her to strike 218 times until she could do it in her sleep. Crack. Not the sound of bone breaking, the sound of nerve disruption, the sound of a man's hand forgetting how to be a hand. Hudson screams, high and sharp and surprised. His grip collapses. He falls sideways, cradling his arm like it's been sawed off at the nerve. The kind of pain that doesn't fade fast. The kind that lingers in the shoulder and neck and makes you wonder if you'll ever feel your fingers again. 1 second, maybe 2. The man behind her reacts instinctively. Sullivan. Too late. He reaches for her waist, probably expecting to catch a flailing target. Instead, she rotates low, drops her center of gravity, sweeps her inside leg across his stance. A tight arc, fast and low, her shin aimed at the side of his knee. Not the kneecap, the medial collateral ligament, the MCL, the soft tissue that holds the joint together when you pivot or twist or do anything human knees were designed to do. She delivers 40 pounds of lateral force in a space designed to handle 10. The pop is clean, almost surgical. He doesn't even fall forward. He folds in place, face first into the mat with a groan that ends in a gag, like his body's trying to process 2 kinds of pain at once and can't decide which deserves the scream. 4 seconds, maybe 5. The third man charges. Barrett. No hesitation now, just fury. The kind of fury that comes when a plan falls apart faster than the brain can adjust. He moves like a brawler. Wide steps, full weight behind the shoulders. Arms reaching to grab and crush and pin. The kind of charge that works in bar fights when the other guy's drunk or scared or untrained. She lets him come. Lets him get close enough to think contact is guaranteed. Lets him commit every ounce of his 215 pounds into forward momentum. Then she sidesteps. Not a full evasion, just a pivot, and uses his own forward drive to redirect his trajectory. His neck meets the lip of the metal bench at 18 miles per hour. Not enough to kill, enough to stun. Enough to make his brain shut down non-essential systems for 6 or 7 seconds, while it figures out if the spine is still intact. He doesn't scream, he bounces, then drops. 11 seconds, 3 men, 0 hospitalizations needed, but none of them will be standing without assistance. She stands over them, breathing like she just finished a warm-up, eyes calm, posture squared, hands relaxed again at her sides. She doesn't spit, doesn't taunt, doesn't say a word. They're groaning, crawling, trying to piece together what just happened, trying to reconcile the story they told themselves with the reality now written across their bodies in nerve damage and hyperextended ligaments and bruised tracheas. She walks to the edge of the mat, grabs the clipboard they used as a prop, holds it like it might still have something worth signing. One of them tries to rise. Hudson gets halfway before his leg betrays him and he drops again. She crouches beside him, just once, close enough that he can hear her clearly. You did this to yourselves. Then she stands, turns, steps back to center. 3 men, broken and silenced, surround her like punctuation marks on a page they never should have tried to write. There are no threats left to give, only consequences, and they're still arriving. The 3 of them lay scattered across the room like a failed ritual. None of them unconscious. None of them victorious. Every breath they take now is an admission, because there's no covering up what just happened. No version where they let her win. No edit where this was a misunderstanding. Their bodies tell the story now, and their silence confirms it. She doesn't gloat, doesn't pace. She just stands, centered, composed, and terrifyingly calm. One tries to speak, Barrett, the first one, wrist cradled against his chest like a wounded bird, ego shredded worse than the nerve cluster in his forearm. We were just... She cuts him off with a look, nothing more. A glance sharp enough to pin him to the mat. The second man is half sitting now, Sullivan, clutching his knee, face pale with the weight of consequences not yet spoken. He tries to shift the story. It got out of hand. We thought... She takes a step toward him. Not fast, not loud, but absolute. He stops mid-sentence like the words have abandoned him. You thought, she says, the first words she's spoken since the room turned. You thought I was weak. You thought being quiet meant soft. You thought virginity was permission. She crouches just low enough to look him in the eye. You thought wrong. No one moves. The air feels heavy, like the room itself is holding its breath. Then, as if summoned by some twisted symmetry of fate, the door clicks open. It's not loud, not dramatic, just a slow mechanical swing of the hydraulic hinge. And then two women step inside. Standard rotation, probably here for their own gear check. They freeze immediately, caught in the stillness. Their eyes sweep the room. They see everything. The clipboard on the floor, the bruises starting to rise, the red-faced men struggling to sit upright. One of the women, taller, older, starts to speak. Should we? No, Kira says. Her voice is different now, not hard, not cracked, just undeniable. Stay. The women do. One against the wall, one near the rack, neither speaking, both watching. She turns back to the men, slowly, fully. And then she does what none of them expected. She doesn't beat them again. She asks them questions. What were you about to do? Silence. What was the plan? Nothing. Then say it. The man nearest the door cracks first. Barrett. We were going to... He can't finish it. His voice breaks. We just wanted to... She waits. He looks down, humiliated beyond recovery. To take it, he whispers. Her first time. She doesn't react, doesn't blink. She turns to the next. And you? Sullivan hesitates longer, but not forever. We thought she needed to be shown. And you? She faces the third, Hudson, still nursing his leg. He doesn't look up. Correction, he says, like training. Her head tilts. Correction? He doesn't answer. Behind her, one of the women exhales, sharp, furious, but says nothing. She lets the silence stretch until it suffocates. Then she steps back and says clearly, for all four of them to hear, you don't get to be feared anymore. The words land harder than the strikes ever had. You don't walk around like you're stronger. You don't hold power with your silence. Not after this. She points, not at them, at the women. They saw it. Then at the room. This space remembers. Then finally at the door. You leave when I say you can. And then she stands still, arms folded, feet planted. They don't move. Because in that moment, no one knows what comes next. And then they break. Not with screams, not with surrender. The first one drops to his knees. Barrett. A slow, embarrassed descent that looks like compliance, but feels like confession. The others follow, because they're out of defiance and out of options. She didn't ask them to kneel. She didn't have to. That was the worst part for them. She lets them sit there in their silence. Heads down, egos gutted, strength redefined. And then she turns to the women by the door. If anyone ever tries to tell you fear is strength, remember this. They nod, both of them. Then she turns and walks out. No speech, no threat, no dramatics, just command burned into the air behind her. The three men stay kneeling, because standing again would mean believing they still deserve to. She packs with the same discipline she arrived with. Every fold exact, every strap pulled tight, every item logged in the inventory sheet without pause or error. Not a word spoken. The three men stay out of sight. She doesn't need to look for them. She can feel it in the hallways, in the weight of silence that has shifted from her shoulders onto theirs. Every footstep she takes echoes in a space where they used to laugh, where they used to control the tempo, where they used to decide who belonged and who didn't. Not anymore. The same men who once filled door frames and shadowed locker rooms now move like ghosts, if they move at all. She catches glimpses, not of confrontation, not of defiance, of avoidance. Eyes that dart away the second they meet hers, posture stiffening behind corners, a cough behind a door that doesn't open again. No apologies, no threats, just distance. At the final checkout desk, the officer on duty barely makes eye contact. His name tape reads Garrison, the same staff sergeant who processed her arrival. "Sign here," he mutters. She does. "Transport leaves at 1800. You'll be met by a driver." She nods once, turns, walks away, her bag over her shoulder, papers in her hand, uniform crisp and untouched. Every corridor she crosses feels smaller than before. Every turn reminds her how little space it really took to unmake a myth. And when she reaches the final door, the one that leads out of that temporary hell into whatever comes next, she pauses. Just long enough to let the quiet register. Not for her, for them. She doesn't need revenge. She doesn't need validation. She needs only this: that they know exactly why the silence is heavier now. That every time they see another woman walk through that facility, they'll remember. That they will never again be the scariest ones in the room. She opens the door and walks out. No one follows. She never comes back. Not to visit, not to gloat, not to finish the job. And that was the worst part, because they had been bracing for it. They thought maybe she'd file a report, maybe she'd call someone, maybe there'd be some kind of hearing, some reckoning, some outside force they could prepare for or fight. But it never came. No phone call, no investigator, not even a rumor. She was just gone. And in her absence, the unit didn't heal. It rotted. At first, the three of them tried to spin it. She went crazy. She jumped us. She snapped. But no one believed them, because no one had ever seen them rattle before. And now they flinched at door hinges. They looked away when women passed. They spoke softer, laughed less. That wasn't weakness, that was fear. They told each other it was nothing. She'll fade, people move on. But people didn't. They remembered. Other women started walking taller. Conversations stopped being filtered through smirks. The men who'd once filled the room now barely held space in it. They became warnings, not leaders. Not because of what she did, but because of what she didn't have to do. She never filed paperwork. She never made a scene. She just made them remember. They resented her for that, said she was manipulative, said she'd used the system. But everyone who mattered had seen the aftermath. They'd seen the men who used to call themselves trainers move like they were afraid of their own shadows. They'd heard the silence after she left, and how it was louder than any fight. And the worst part, the thing that kept them awake at night, was simple. The three of them still had to wake up in that same facility, still had to wear the same uniforms, still had to pretend like they hadn't tried to break someone and been rebuilt around her instead. Because the only thing worse than being overpowered is being forgotten by the one who did it. The two women who witnessed it couldn't stay silent, not because they wanted attention, but because silence felt like complicity. Sergeant Sloan Brennan filed a climate complaint 3 days after Kira left. Not about the incident specifically, about the culture, about the way women were talked about when they weren't in the room, about the informal power structures that protected predators and isolated targets. Private Riley Thorne backed her up, added details. named names. Not just the three men in that room, but others. The ones who laughed, the ones who knew, the ones who looked the other way because it was easier than standing up. The investigation was quiet. No press releases, no public statements, just a slow, methodical review that ended with 3 transfers, 2 demotions, and 1 new commanding officer. A woman, Colonel Margaret Thornton, 48, Army, no nonsense, zero tolerance policy in writing and in practice. Within 6 months, Fort Bridger was unrecognizable. Formal reporting structures, mandatory training, an actual chain of command that didn't run through whoever had the loudest voice in the smoke shed. 8 more women came forward, not about assaults, about smaller things, comments, looks, the feeling of being evaluated every time they walked into a room. Brennan was promoted to Sergeant First Class, started leading integration training courses, teaching male soldiers how to see female soldiers as soldiers, not as threats, not as curiosities, just as people doing the same job. Thorne transferred to instructor duty at a different base, requested it specifically, said she wanted to teach the next generation before the culture poisoned them. In Storage Room C, they renamed it Accountability Bay, used it for ethics training now, mandatory sessions for every incoming rotation. There was a plaque outside, small brass, just 3 words, where silence ended. None of the instructors explained what it meant. They didn't have to. Everyone knew. 3 months after she left Fort Bridger, Kira Dalton was assigned to SEAL Team 3, Middle East deployment, high-value target missions, the kind of work that separates operators from everyone who just wears the uniform. Her team leader was a man named Marcus Hunt, 34, 15 years in, 2 Bronze Stars, and a reputation for running the tightest squad in naval special warfare. He didn't want her, not because she was a woman, because she was untested in his eyes. Pipeline complete doesn't mean combat ready, he told the Command Master Chief during the assignment briefing. I don't care what she did at BUD/S. I care what she does when rounds are coming down range and the plan falls apart. The Master Chief didn't argue, just handed over her file and said, read it and decide. Hunt read it. He decided she'd last 3 weeks before requesting transfer. He was wrong. The squad was 6 men when she arrived, all of them older, all of them with deployment time that made her Hell Week look like summer camp. They didn't haze her, didn't welcome her either, just watched, measured, waited for her to prove she didn't belong. First week, she didn't speak unless spoken to, kept her gear squared, hit every mark in training. When they ran, she ran faster. When they shot, she shot tighter groups. When they studied target packages, she memorized details they missed. Not to show off, just to survive. Second week, Hunt put her on point during a room clearing drill. Full kit, live rounds, 6 hostiles on paper, 2 friendlies mixed in. The kind of scenario designed to make you hesitate, because hesitation in close quarters gets people killed. She cleared it in 42 seconds. No missed threats, no friendly hits. Clean. Hunt didn't congratulate her, just nodded and moved to the next drill. Third week, one of the squad members, a senior chief named Dalton Rourke, 41, former Marine Raider with a scar across his jaw from Fallujah, pulled her aside after morning PT. You're good, he said, but good doesn't mean trusted. Trust comes from bleeding together. She looked at him, didn't blink. Then I guess we better deploy. He almost smiled. Almost. Fourth week, they got the call. 48 hours to wheels up. Target package. High-value insurgent leader operating out of a compound in northern Syria. Intelligence said 6 to 8 hostiles. Civilian presence likely. Limited exfil options. The kind of mission where everything that can go wrong usually does. Hunt briefed the team in a secure room with maps and satellite photos spread across a table that had seen 100 briefings just like this. Kira listened, absorbed. When he asked for questions, she had 3, all tactical, all relevant. He answered them without hesitation. For the first time since she joined the team, he looked at her like she might actually belong. They deployed on a Tuesday, flew into a forward operating base that didn't have a name, just a grid coordinate, staged for 36 hours, reviewed the plan, checked weapons, slept in shifts. The night before the operation, Kira sat alone in the corner of a dusty tent, field stripping her rifle for the fourth time, when Hunt sat down across from her. "You nervous?" he asked. She didn't look up. "No." "Liar." She paused, looked at him. "Maybe a little." "Good," he said. "Nervous keeps you sharp. Fearless gets you killed." He stood, started to walk away, then stopped, turned back. "Dalton, if something goes sideways tomorrow, I need to know you'll do what needs doing. Not what feels right, what needs doing." She met his eyes. "I will." He nodded. "That's all I need to hear." The operation launched at 0300. 6 operators, 2 vehicles, 15-minute drive to the target compound. No moon. Dust in the air thick enough to taste. Kira was 4th in the stack. Hunt on point. Rourke directly behind him, then 2 others, Carter and Mills. Both SEALs with years of experience written into the way they moved. Then her. Then the 6th man, a combat medic named Fisher. The compound was exactly where intelligence said it would be. Single-story structure, mud walls, 2 entry points, 1 vehicle outside. Thermal imaging showed 8 heat signatures inside, more than expected. Hunt made the call to proceed anyway. They breached at 0317. Flashbang through the door. Entry team flowing in with a kind of choreography that only comes from doing this 100 times before. Kira moved with them. Smooth, controlled, her sector of fire clear. 2 hostiles down in the first room. Clean shots, center mass, no hesitation. Second room, Carter took point, opened the door and caught a burst from an AK on full auto. 3 rounds hit his plate carrier, knocked him back but didn't penetrate. He returned fire. Hostile down, but the noise brought more footsteps from the hallway. Voices shouting in Arabic. The plan was already falling apart. Hunt called an audible. "Fisher, get Carter stable." "Dalton, you're with me and Rourke." "Mills, rear security." They pushed through. She didn't question it, just moved. Followed Hunt and Rourke down a narrow hallway lit only by their weapon lights. Shadows jumping, dust still settling from the breach. They hit the 3rd room and found 2 more hostiles, armed, moving toward them. Hunt and Rourke fired simultaneously, both down. But there was a 4th room, and thermal had shown 8 signatures. They'd only accounted for 6. Hunt stacked on the door, Rourke behind him, Kira 3rd. She could hear movement inside, shuffling, a voice, a woman's voice, crying. Hunt held up a fist. Everyone froze. He looked back at Kira. "Hostage situation," he mouthed. She nodded. He breached soft. No flashbang, just speed and surprise. The door swung in and Kira saw it all at once. A woman on the floor, hands bound, 2 children beside her. A man standing over them with a pistol, not pointed at the door, pointed at the woman's head. Hunt's rifle was up, but he didn't fire. Too close, too much risk. The man started shouting, in Arabic first, then broke into English. "You leave or she dies. You leave now." Hunt didn't move, didn't lower his weapon, just held position. The room was maybe 12 feet across. The man was 7 feet from the woman, 5 feet from the children. The angles were impossible. Any shot risked hitting someone who didn't deserve it. Kira saw it differently. She saw the man's weight distribution. 60% on his back foot, 20% forward, 20% shifting because he was scared, and adrenaline makes people stupid. She saw his grip on the pistol, tight but high, finger on the trigger but trembling. She saw the distance, the bench between them, the trajectory if she moved low and fast. She didn't ask permission, didn't wait for Hunt to give the order. She just moved, dropped her rifle on the sling, stepped left out of Hunt's line of fire, Closed the distance in 3 strides. The man saw her coming, started to turn, started to aim, but he was thinking in seconds and she was thinking in fractions. Her hand caught his wrist before the pistol fully rotated, twisted it up and back. The same grip reversal Whitmore had taught her 8 months ago. His finger broke against the trigger guard. The pistol clattered to the floor. She swept his legs. He went down hard, face into the dirt. She was on him before he could process what had happened. Knee in his spine, flex cuffs from her kit securing his wrists. "Hostile secure," she said. Hunt and Rourke were still stacked in the doorway, weapons up, processing what had just happened. Then Hunt lowered his rifle. "Good work, Dalton." She didn't respond, just moved to the woman, cut the bindings, checked the children, neither injured, just terrified. She pulled a chem light from her kit, cracked it, handed it to the older child. A boy, maybe 6. "You're safe now," she said in Arabic. "Learn from deployment prep. Basic phrases, enough to matter." The boy took the light, held it like it was the only real thing in the world. They exfiled 12 minutes later. Hostages and children transferred to local Allied forces. High-value targets secured. 0 friendly casualties. Carter had bruised ribs, but nothing broken. The mission was clean. Textbook. Except for the part where Kira improvised in a hostage situation, and it worked. Back at the FOB, Hunt pulled her aside. "That move you made in the room," she waited. "You didn't wait for clearance." "No, sir." "Why?" "Because waiting meant someone died." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "You made the right call. But next time, give me a hand signal so I know you're moving. Keeps us from shooting each other." "Yes, sir." He started to walk away, stopped, turned back. "You're not untested anymore, Dalton. You're one of us." She didn't smile, just nodded. But something shifted. She felt it. The weight of proving herself was gone. What remained was just the work. The deployment lasted 4 months, 17 missions, 3 firefights, 2 more hostage situations. Kira ran point on 6 of them, took shrapnel in her left shoulder during a vehicle ambush in week 9, refused medevac, patched it in the field, stayed in rotation, earned a Combat Action Ribbon, then a Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal with Valor Device for actions during a compound raid where she pulled a wounded teammate out of a kill zone under fire. By the time they rotated home, the squad didn't see her as a woman anymore. They saw her as Dalton, the operator who cleared rooms faster than anyone except Hunt, the one who could shoot a 2-inch group at 300 meters in a sandstorm, the one who didn't flinch when the mortars came in at 0-200 and everyone else was diving for cover. Hunt wrote her evaluation personally, submitted it to the commanding officer with a single recommendation. "Promote immediately. Assigned to leadership track. This operator has the capability to run her own team within 2 years." The CO read it, called Kira into his office. Lieutenant Commander Paul Hendricks, 52, Navy. Silver hair and a handshake that felt like a promise. He told her to sit. She did. He slid the evaluation across the desk. "Read it." She did. Didn't react, just read it twice and slid it back. "Hunt doesn't write evaluations like that often," Hendricks said. "In fact, he's never written one like that. You impressed him. That's not easy." "I just did my job, sir." "No, you did his job. And Rourke's. And your own. All at the same time." He leaned back in his chair. "I'm putting you up for Silver Star. The ambush in week 9. You took fire to pull Fisher out. He'd be dead without you. That's not just doing your job. That's exceeding the standard." She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Hendricks continued. "I'm also offering you 2 options. Option 1, stay with Team 3. Take a squad leader position when the next one opens, probably 6 months. Option 2, transfer to BUD/S as an instructor. First female combat instructor in SEAL history. Help shape the next generation." She didn't hesitate. Option 1, sir. He smiled. Thought you'd say that. But think about option 2, because the Navy needs you there. Not now, but eventually. She nodded. I'll think about it, sir. Dismissed. She stood, saluted, walked out. 2 days later, the Silver Star ceremony happened in a warehouse on base, with 30 people in attendance. Hendricks pinned the medal on her uniform, shook her hand, said nothing that wasn't already written on the citation. Hunt was there, Rourke too. The whole squad, Fisher, the medic she'd pulled out, hugged her afterward, said thank you in a voice that cracked. She told him to buy her a beer and they'd call it even. That night, alone in her quarters, she took the medal off, looked at it, felt the weight, not of the medal, of what it represented. People had died earning these, people better than her, braver than her. She set it on the desk and didn't look at it again. The next morning, she got a call from a number she didn't recognize, answered it anyway. Dalton, a voice she hadn't heard in months, rough, familiar, proud. Saw the news, kid. Silver Star. Your old man would have been proud. Master Chief Garrett Whitmore. She exhaled. Didn't realize she'd been holding her breath. Thank you, Master Chief. Don't thank me, you earned it. He paused. Heard something else, too. Fort Bridger. 3 men. 11 seconds. She didn't respond. He continued. You used the grip reversal, the one I taught you. Yes, Master Chief. Good, that's what it's for. Not for war, for moments when your own people become the enemy. She swallowed. I didn't file a report. I know, and you shouldn't have, because what you did was better than any report. You made them afraid, not of punishment, of themselves. That fear lasts longer than any court-martial. There was silence on the line. Then he said, I'm retiring next month. 49 years, since 75. Grenada, Panama, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq. Operations you'll never hear about because they're still classified. I've trained 2,300 SEALs, lost 47 in combat, almost lost 1 to friendly fire. But I didn't, because I taught her what she needed to know. He paused. I'm proud of you, Kira, not for the medal, for the choices you made when no one was watching. She felt something break in her chest. Thank you, Master Chief. One more thing. There's a ceremony, my retirement. Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. 3 weeks. I'd like you there. I'll be there. Good. And Kira, bring that medal. I want to see it in person. The ceremony was held on a Friday afternoon in late October. The sky was clear. The wind off the Pacific was cold, but not biting. 200 people attended. Officers, enlisted, family members, former teammates. Whitmore stood at a podium in his dress whites, with 49 years of ribbons on his chest, and a trident that had seen more wars than most people could name. He gave a speech, short, direct, no sentimentality, just this. I've served through Grenada, Panama, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and operations you'll never hear about because they're still classified. I've trained thousands, lost dozens, learned from all of them. He paused, looked out at the crowd. But the most important thing I learned didn't come from a manual. It came from watching people choose who they want to be when the rules don't apply. When no one's watching, when the right thing and the easy thing are miles apart. He gestured to the side. Kira was standing in the front row. Lieutenant Kira Dalton, Silver Star recipient, SEAL Team 3. She earned that medal pulling a teammate out of a kill zone under fire. But that's not why I'm proud of her. The crowd was silent. I'm proud of her because 6 months before that deployment, she was in a room with 3 men who thought power meant taking what they wanted. And she taught them a lesson I've spent 49 years teaching. That strength isn't about what you take. It's about what you protect. He looked directly at her. She didn't look away. She didn't file a report, didn't seek revenge, didn't make it public. She just made sure they remembered. And because of that, Dozens of women who came after her walked into that same facility and didn't have to fight the same fight. That's leadership. That's legacy. He stepped away from the podium, walked directly to her. The crowd parted. He stopped in front of her, reached into his pocket, pulled out something small, his Trident pin, the original, from 1975 when he first earned it. This survived Grenada, survived Panama, survived every operation I ran for 49 years. Now it's yours. Master Chief, I can't. You already did. In that room. This is just metal. What you took was knowledge. And knowledge is only valuable if you pass it on. He pinned it to her uniform, right next to the Silver Star. Then he saluted her. She returned it. The crowd erupted in applause. She felt tears but didn't let them fall. Not here. Not now. After the ceremony, she found him alone near the beach. He was standing at the water's edge, looking out at the horizon. She walked up beside him, didn't say anything, just stood. You thinking about option 2? He asked. How did you? Because I know you, and I know the Navy's going to keep asking until you say yes. She nodded. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Good, because the next generation needs someone who understands what I taught you. That combat isn't just overseas. Sometimes it's in your own house. And the warriors we need aren't just the ones who can fight enemies. They're the ones who can recognize when the enemy is wearing the same uniform. He turned to her. You ready for that? She looked at the water, at the place where the ocean met the sky. I don't know. He smiled. That's the right answer. The ones who think they're ready never are. 18 months after Fort Bridger, Kira Dalton accepted option 2. She transferred to BUD/S as an instructor. First female combat instructor in SEAL history. The announcement made headlines. Not because she wanted it to, because the Navy wanted it to. Proof that the culture was changing, that women could lead, that the pipeline was open. She didn't read the articles, didn't do interviews, just showed up on day 1 of Class 389 with the same attitude she'd brought to every other challenge in her life. Do the work, prove nothing, let the results speak. Class 389 had 52 candidates. 4 of them were women. Harper Novak was one of them. 19 years old, former college soccer player, recruited straight out of University of North Carolina after scoring in the top percentile on every physical and mental assessment the Navy could throw at her. She looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. Tall, athletic, blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun. The kind of woman who turned heads without trying. The male candidates noticed. Some of them made comments, quiet ones they thought the instructors couldn't hear. Bet she doesn't make it past Hell Week. Too pretty, too soft. Probably here for the photo op. Harper heard them. Didn't react, just kept her head down and did the work. Kira noticed. She always noticed. Because she'd been Harper once. The one everyone underestimated. The one they thought would quit. First week, Kira ran the class through basic conditioning. Runs, swims, calisthenics. Harper kept pace with the top 10%. No complaints, no requests for modifications. When the male candidates tried to outpace her on the beach runs, she matched them stride for stride until they gassed out and she kept going. Second week, Kira introduced close quarters combat drills, hand-to-hand, grappling, submissions, the kind of training that separates people who look tough from people who are tough. Harper held her own, got thrown a few times, threw back, learned fast. Third week, one of the male candidates, a former college wrestler named Brett Connolly, 22, 6'2", 220, made a comment during a grappling drill, loud enough for everyone to hear. This would be easier if we didn't have to go easy on the girls. Kira stopped the drill, walked over, stood in front of him. You think you're going easy? Yes, ma'am. Prove it. Full contact round. You versus Novak. No holds barred except submissions and strikes to the head. First tap loses. Connolly looked at Harper. She looked back. Didn't blink. He shrugged. Okay. They squared off on the mat. Kira gave the signal. Connolly moved first, rushed in with all his weight, textbook tackle. Harper sidestepped, used his momentum, caught his arm, twisted it into a joint lock. He tried to power out. She adjusted, dropped her weight, leveraged the angle. 3 seconds later, he tapped. The class went silent. Kira looked at Connolly. Still think you were going easy? No, ma'am. Good. Run a lap. Think about why you lost. He ran. Harper stayed on the mat. Didn't gloat, didn't say a word, just reset and waited for the next drill. After class, Kira pulled Harper aside. You've got skills. Where'd you learn that lock? Jiu-jitsu, ma'am. Started when I was 12. Good. Keep using it. Size doesn't matter if you know where the weak points are. Harper nodded. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Go ahead. How did you deal with it? The comments, the assumptions, the guys who thought you didn't belong. Kira looked at her, really looked at her, saw herself 5 years ago. I didn't deal with it, she said. I just outlasted it, kept doing the work until the work was louder than the noise. Harper absorbed that. Thank you, ma'am. One more thing. If someone tries something, if it goes past comments, you tell me immediately. Harper hesitated. What if I can handle it myself? Then handle it. But tell me after, because the next woman who comes through here deserves to know what she's walking into. Yes, ma'am. Hell Week came in week 4. The Crucible. Harper made it to day 3. So did 2 of the other women. The 4th quit on day 1. Not from physical failure, from psychological breakdown. The instructor said she just stopped moving during a surf drill. Stood there while the waves hit her. Didn't respond to commands. Didn't cry. Just stared. They pulled her out. Sent her to medical. Drop on request. Day 3, Harper started showing cracks. Not in her body, in her face. The blankness that comes from running on 0 sleep and maximum pain. She was carrying a boat on her head with 5 other candidates, all male, all bigger. They were struggling too, but they weren't the ones the instructors were watching. Kira watched from the observation deck, saw Harper stumble, catch herself, keep moving, saw the male candidates shift the weight away from her, not to help, to test, to see if she'd quit when it got harder. She didn't. Day 4, surf torture, 0-400, water 58 degrees. Candidates locked arms sitting in the surf zone, waves rolling over them, hypothermia setting in, instructors walking the line, offering the bell, offering warmth, offering sleep. Harper was shaking, lips blue, eyes half closed. The candidate next to her, a former college football player named Hayes, whispered loud enough for the instructors to hear. She's not going to make it. Look at her. Harper opened her eyes, looked at him. Fuck you, Hayes. Hayes blinked, then laughed. All right, respect. She made it through day 5, through the log PT, through the runs, through the final evolution where they carry boats over sand dunes until their legs give out and then carry them some more. When the instructors finally called secure, 48 candidates were left. Harper was one of them. So were the other 2 women. Kira met her after. Harper could barely stand, could barely speak. Kira handed her a bottle of water. You made it. Harper drank, nodded, couldn't form words yet. Kira continued. Week 1, you prove you can show up. Week 4, you prove you won't quit. Now comes the part where you prove you can lead. Harper looked at her, found her voice. Hoarse, broken, but there. I'm ready. 6 weeks later, Harper Novak was named class leader. First woman in BUD/S history to hold the position. It wasn't a ceremonial role, it was tactical. The class leader coordinated movements, made decisions under pressure, represented the class to the instructors. If the class failed, the leader owned it. Some of the male candidates resented it, said it was political, said the Navy was making a statement. Harper heard the whispers. ignored them, focused on the work. Kira pulled her aside before a major field exercise. You're going to get tested, not by the instructors, by your own class. They're going to wait for you to screw up, and when you do, they're going to say it's because you're a woman. Harper met her eyes. What do I do? Don't screw up. Harper almost smiled. And if I do anyway? Then own it, apologize, fix it, move on. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being accountable. The field exercise was a simulated hostage rescue. 2-day operation, limited sleep, live fire drills, complex decision trees. The kind of scenario designed to create chaos and measure how people respond. Harper's team was assigned the primary assault element. 12 candidates. Her call on entry points, her call on timing, her call on how to handle unexpected changes. And there were changes. Halfway through day 1, the instructors changed the target building layout, added a second hostile force, pulled one of Harper's key candidates out for a simulated injury. She adapted, reassigned roles, adjusted the timeline, briefed the team on the new plan. They executed. It wasn't perfect. One candidate missed his sector during the breach. Another misidentified a friendly. But the mission succeeded. Hostages recovered. Threats neutralized. 0 friendly casualties. Kira watched from the observation tower, took notes. After the debrief, she called Harper in, sat her down. How do you think you did? Harper exhaled. We completed the mission, but I made mistakes. Should have caught the sector gap before entry. Should have verified friendlies before clearing the room. Kira nodded. You're right, you missed those. But you also adapted when the plan changed, kept your team focused, got the job done. That's leadership. Harper looked up. So I passed? You're still here, aren't you? Harper nodded. Kira leaned forward. You're going to graduate, Novak. And when you do, you're going to deploy. And on that deployment, you're going to be in a room where the plan falls apart, where everything you train for doesn't apply. And you're going to have to make a choice. The right choice or the easy choice? Harper listened. Kira continued. When that moment comes, remember this. You didn't get here because someone gave you something. You got here because you earned it. Every step, every evolution, every time someone said you couldn't, you proved you could. That's not luck. That's who you are. Harper's voice was quiet. Thank you, ma'am. Kira stood. Get out of here. You've got a class to lead. Harper graduated BUD/S with Class 389, top 15%, earned her Trident, was assigned to SEAL Team 5, deployed 8 months later, ran 17 missions, earned a Bronze Star with Valor for actions during a compound raid where she made a split-second decision that saved 3 lives. 2 years later, she became an instructor, followed the same path Kira had. Because someone had to. Because the next generation of women deserved to see that it was possible. Kira watched it happen from a distance. She'd moved on by then, promoted to lieutenant commander, assigned to Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DevGRU, the tip of the spear, the operators who handled the missions no one else could. She ran a team, led operations, became the kind of leader she'd needed when she was 20 and drowning in surf torture. But she never forgot Fort Bridger, never forgot the 3 men in that room, never forgot what Whitmore taught her, that the hardest fight isn't against enemies overseas, it's against the people who wear the same uniform and think that makes them safe. 3 years after Fort Bridger, Kira got a message forwarded through official channels. Not a letter, a video file. Subject line, for Lieutenant Dalton, from R. Sullivan. She almost deleted it, but something made her click play. The screen filled with a classroom, high school, 30 teenagers slouched in chairs, and Reed Sullivan standing at the front. Today we're talking about consent, his voice said, steady, clear, nothing like the man who tried to pin her in storage room C. I'm going to tell you about the worst thing I ever did, and the woman who stopped me from becoming a monster. Kira's hand froze on the mouse. For the next 20 minutes, she watched him tell the story. Not her name, not specifics, but the truth. 3 men, 1 woman, a room, a plan, and the 11 seconds that changed everything. She didn't report me, Sullivan said to the class. She didn't have to, because what she took from me was worse than any punishment. She took my belief that I could get away with it. That silence meant compliance. That power came from taking. A girl in the front row raised her hand. What happened to the other 2 men? Sullivan's jaw tightened. One disappeared. One still in the military but will never be trusted again. And me? I left, got therapy, learned why I thought I had the right to another person's body, and now I teach kids like you so you never become what I was. The video ended. Kira sat in the darkness of her office. Didn't move for a long time. Then she opened her email, typed 1 line. Keep teaching, Dalton. Sent. 3 minutes later, her phone buzzed. 1-word reply, always. She never heard from Damon Barrett or Trent Hudson. Some people learn, some people just disappear. But Reed Sullivan chose to become proof that change is possible. And that was its own kind of reckoning. 5 years after Fort Bridger, Kira Dalton stood on the beach at Coronado at dawn. Same place Whitmore used to run. Same water, same wind. She was 25 now, lieutenant commander, 2 deployments, 43 missions, more medals than she cared to count. But none of that mattered as much as what happened next. A figure jogged up beside her, slowed, stopped. Harper Novak, now lieutenant junior grade, SEAL Team 5, fresh off her 2nd deployment. Ma'am, Harper said. Kira smiled. You don't have to call me ma'am anymore. We're the same team now. Harper smiled back. Old habits. They stood in silence, watching the sun rise over the Pacific. Finally, Harper spoke. I got offered instructor duty again, full time. They want me to help redesign the BUD/S pipeline, make it more inclusive. You going to take it? I don't know. Part of me wants to stay operational, keep deploying, prove I can do it as long as anyone. Kira nodded. I felt the same way. Then someone told me something I didn't want to hear. What? That the best operators aren't always the ones downrange. Sometimes they're the ones training the people who go downrange, making sure the next generation doesn't have to fight the same fights we did. Harper absorbed that. You think I should take it? Kira looked at her. I think you should do what you think is right, but I also think the Navy needs people like you in positions where you can change the culture, not just participate in it. Harper nodded slowly. Okay, I'll think about it. Good. They stood in silence again. Then Harper said, Ma'am, can I ask you something? Sure. Fort Bridger, what happened there? Did it change you? Kira didn't answer right away. She thought about the room, about the 11 seconds, about the choice she made to use precision instead of rage, about the men who kneeled, about the women who witnessed, about the culture that shifted because she refused to let silence mean weakness. Yeah, she finally said, it changed me, but not the way you'd think. It didn't make me harder, it made me clearer, about what strength actually is, about what's worth fighting for. Harper listened. Kira continued. I used to think strength was about winning, about being the best, about proving people wrong. But that room taught me something different. Strength is about knowing when to fight and when to walk away, when to speak and when to let silence do the work, when to destroy and when to rebuild. She paused. Those 3 men thought taking something from me would make them powerful. But I took something from them instead. Not their bodies, their belief. The belief that they could get away with it, that no one would stop them, that women like me would just accept it. She looked at Harper. And when I walked out of that room, I didn't just change them. I changed everyone who heard the story. Every woman who walked into Fort Bridger after me. Every instructor who thought twice before letting toxic culture slide. Every man who realized that predators don't just wear enemy uniforms. Harper's voice was quiet. That's a hell of a legacy. Kira shook her head. It's not a legacy yet. It's just the beginning. Because culture doesn't change with one person. It changes when that person teaches the next person. And that person teaches the next. Until the thing that was once normal becomes unthinkable. She turned to Harper. You want to know if you should take that instructor job? Take it. Because the next Harper Novak who walks into BUD/S deserves to have you there. Someone who understands what she's up against. Someone who can teach her what I taught you, what Whitmore taught me. That strength isn't what you take, it's what you protect. Harper nodded. Okay, I'll do it. Good. They started jogging again, side by side, same pace, same rhythm. The sun fully up now, the water crashing against the shore, the sound of a new day beginning. When they reached the gate, Harper slowed, stopped, caught her breath, looked at Kira. Thank you, she said, for everything. Kira shook her head. Don't thank me, just pass it on. I will. Good, now get out of here. You've got a pipeline to redesign. Harper smiled, saluted, turned and jogged toward the admin building. Kira watched her go, watched the future walk away with purpose and clarity and strength that came from knowing she belonged. Then Kira turned toward the water one last time. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the trident pin, Whitmore's original from 1975, 49 years of service condensed into a piece of metal smaller than her palm. She held it up to the light, watched it catch the sun. Then she heard footsteps behind her, turned. A young woman, maybe 19, civilian clothes, nervous energy. Excuse me, are you Lieutenant Commander Dalton? Kira nodded. I am. The woman exhaled, relief flooding her face. I'm Emma Reeves. I just got accepted to BUD/S Class 402. I'm supposed to start in 3 months. Congratulations. Emma shifted her weight. I'm scared. Not of the physical stuff, I can do that, but I've heard stories. About the culture, about how some guys don't want us there. About what happens when you're alone in a room with people who think you don't belong. Kira looked at her, really looked at her, saw herself a decade ago, saw Harper 5 years ago, saw every woman who'd ever stood at this exact spot, wondering if she was strong enough. You'll be fine, Kira said. Not because it'll be easy, but because you'll have something they don't. Emma leaned forward. What? People who came before you, people who fought so you wouldn't have to, people who taught you what to do when someone mistakes your silence for weakness. Emma absorbed that. What do I do if something happens? Kira smiled, small, knowing. You remember that strength isn't what you take, it's what you protect. And then you show them exactly what happens when they forget that. Emma nodded slowly. Okay. And one more thing. Yes, ma'am? When you make it through, and you will, you come find me, because the work doesn't end at graduation. It's just beginning. Yes, ma'am, I will. Emma smiled, saluted, walked away. Kira turned back to the water one last time, held the trident up to the light. Whitmore's legacy, her father's sacrifice. 3 generations of warriors. One lesson passed down through blood and sweat and silence. She whispered to the ocean, not a girl anymore, never was. Behind her, the Naval Amphibious Base hummed with life. Harper redesigning the pipeline, Emma preparing for Hell Week, Sullivan teaching consent in classrooms across America, Sloan and Riley leading integration courses. And somewhere in that vast machine, another woman was walking into a room where men thought they had power. She'd be ready. Because Kira Dalton had made sure of it. Not by filing reports, not by seeking revenge, but by proving that strength isn't what you take, it's what you protect. And the ripples of that truth would never stop spreading.